end, and where I did buy fuel, it was written there boldly 537 naira per litre. But you would see that the fuel queues have disappeared. Have Nigerians now resigned to fate that, okay, there's no subsidy as it were now, though according to the law, there's still a budgetary provision for fuel subsidy from at least now till the end of June. Today is June 1. So there are a lot of issues. Meanwhile, federal labor organizations rose from the meeting yesterday with the federal government as well as the NNPC Limited and the Central Bank of Nigeria, and did say that the meeting, that it was an ambush, as it were, that how can you have decided and you're calling us again for a meeting, but the deliberations, they say, will still continue later. Labour would also be meeting tomorrow, I'm aware of that. So a lot of things have happened really in the last 3 days. We will be looking at even balancing the political, the socio-economic fallouts of President Tinubu's pronouncement, and perhaps the posture of the federal government so far concerning reforms as regards to fuel subsidy, as well as what more can we expect from President Tinubu moving forward. My guest will be joining me shortly, but don't forget to join us on all our social media platforms. You can connect with us as the handles are on the screen right now. In case you want to email us, that is the email address on the screen. Don't also forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Moneyline with Nancy TV, where you also get to watch the show. But we will kickstart with the business news. This morning, the Central Bank of Nigeria has debunked a report by a national daily saying that it has not devalued the naira to 631 naira to the dollar at the exporters, at the importers and exporters window. That's the I&E window. The Apex Bank, through the acting Director of Corporate Communications, said that the report is completely false and warned that such report would have serious adverse consequences for the economy. According to the CBN, it has not changed its strategy of allowing a gradual convergence of the parallel and official market exchange rates. That's the press release that you're watching right now from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Moving ahead, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has adjusted the pump price of petrol by nearly 200% to between 488 naira and 557 naira nationwide. The development followed the announcement by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu during his inaugural address on Monday that fuel subsidy was gone. In the schedule detailing the new rates, prices have now been adjusted upward from between 189 naira to 194 naira to what is now around 537 naira per litre in Abuja and other north central states. For Lagos and other southwest states, a litre of fuel now sells for between 488 naira and 500 naira per litre. In the southeast, the price will range from 515 naira to 520 naira, while in the northwest, the price of the product is raised to 540 naira. In the northeast, it moved from 190 naira per litre to 557 naira per litre. Talks between the federal government and organized labor over the removal of fuel subsidy ended in a deadlock on Wednesday as they failed to reach a consensus following the hike in petrol pump prices to over 500 naira from 195 naira per litre by NNPC. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited has adjusted the pump prices of petrol by nearly 200% or over 200% really to between 488 naira to 557 naira nationwide. The developments followed the announcement by President Bola Tinubu during his inaugural address on Monday that fuel subsidy was gone. In the schedule detailing the new rates, prices have now been adjusted upward from around 194 naira to 537 naira per litre in Abuja and other north central states. Moving ahead, the federal government, according to recent data, borrowed 6.07 trillion naira from the Central Bank of Nigeria through ways and means advances in 2022. The federal government's borrowing from the CBN has increased from 17.46 trillion naira in December 2021 to 23.53 trillion naira in December 2022. The federal government had said it would repay the loans with securities such as treasury bills and bond issuances because the government had started experiencing a significant revenue shortfall. Banks' borrowings from the Central Bank of Nigeria Standing Lending Facility (SLF) rose year-on-year by 464% to 4.95 trillion naira in the first quarter of 2023, from 877 billion naira in the corresponding period of 2022. Banks' borrowing from the Apex Bank, which had declined month-on-month in February this year by 14%, suddenly spiked by 775% to 3.97 trillion naira in March and declined by 45% to 2.15 trillion naira in April. Banks borrowing from the Central Bank of Nigeria rose year-on-year to 464% to 4.95 trillion naira in April. The president of the Nigeria-Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Ismail Balogun, has disclosed that trade between Nigeria and Indonesia has exceeded expectations, reaching $4.7 billion, surpassing the initial target of $4 billion. The NICCI revealed at the inaugural edition of the Nigerian-Indonesia Trade Forum in Jakarta. The chamber decided to address the trade imbalances between Nigeria and Indonesia, which stood at $2.8 billion. According to the NICCI, the chamber is committed to partnering with several countries like Qatar, the United Kingdom, Indonesia, the UAE, among others, to create opportunities for Nigerian businesses and drive economic growth. Nigeria's Federal Inland Revenue Service has revealed that as of the end of 2021, Nigeria's tax-to-GDP ratio grew to 10.8% from 6%, accounting for tax revenues from other government agencies apart from the FIRS. This was disclosed in a statement by the FIRS after the new ratio was messaged to the FIRS. Tax-to-GDP is a measure of a nation's tax revenue relative to the size of its economy as measured by the gross domestic product. In the statement, the FIRS stated that Nigeria's tax-to-GDP ratio in the last 12 years hovered between 4 to 6% and rose to 10.86% by the end of 2021. And that's it now for the news at this time. You know that business happens per second, as it were. But these are the stories we're bringing to you right now. In a short while, we will be digging deep into the fallouts we've been seeing, at least in the last 3 days, and where do we go from here? How does President Tinubu balance the socio-economic fallout, so to speak? Is there also a political? I think there's also a political angle to it, and of course the president is a political strategist, but what do we hope to see moving forward? But let's quickly take this break. We'll also be taking you through the markets. Of course, markets have started trading today. We'll be bringing you those numbers in a bit, and after that my guest will be joining me virtually from Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital, to discuss that. Don't forget to join us on all our social media platforms. You'll find us there, and I hope that when we return from the break, I'm also finding you there. Let's go on a quick break.
A lot of Nigeria are expecting a lot from the new government in respect of the previous government that has left. A whole lot of Nigerians, they are disappointed in the previous one, but this particular one, we believe he is going to make Nigeria proud.
To me, we are expecting a lot from them because Nigeria already has been on the pedestrian of all different challenges for a very long time. And this is the government, the same party who has been, been in power for the past 8 years. And for us, you can see I've been on the queue for over 2 hours, 3 hours just to get fuel. And this is just the beginning of the new government. So we expect them to change the narrative. We believe things will change. We want to believe because when things change, it's for the betterment of Nigeria.
We had some of his comments he made last night that the fuel subsidy is gone. But now, when you see around the corner here in Abuja metropolis, you see that the difficulty of the fuel subsidy removal is now surfacing. There's some queue on the line. We have left our house since 8 o'clock, since 7 o'clock. Now we are in the filling station queue. Some of us may sleep here till we get fuel. And that is the causality cause of the fuel subsidy removal.
But my expectation is just simple. This security should be the number one thing to be tackled. Without security, there will be no food. There will be no food security. Because insecurity plays a vital role in our society. So if the insecurity is tackled,
A whole
Welcome back. Dr. Uche Igwe is joining me right now. He's a visiting fellow at London School of Economics and Political Science. He joins us from Port Harcourt, the Rivers State capital. Hello, Dr. Igwe, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much, Nancy. You don't look like someone who has been impacted by fuel subsidy removal. You look elegant.
Thank you, Dr. Igwe. Let me take that as a compliment. It was Fela that sang Suffering and Smiling, and we are so used to that in Nigeria. We are all suffering, yet we are smiling because we are resilient people. At the beginning of the program, I did say that it took me about 57,000 naira yesterday night to fill up my tank. Some time ago, of course, when that was even just last week or so, I bought fuel last, I think, about 2 weeks, just a little above 10 days ago. And my full tank was around just below half tank. And I spent about up. But yesterday, I spent 57,000 naira to fill up the tank, not the full tank, just a little bit, around quarter tank. So you can imagine if my fuel tank is totally empty, how much I would spend to fill up my tank. So, and I know that I'm not the only one that has experienced this. A lot of people have experienced this. If you take 2,000 naira now, I wonder how many liters of fuel you will buy. So, Dr. Igwe, that has been my experience since yesterday. Are you still there? I guess the picture is frozen. Can we try to reconnect again? Can we try to reconnect Dr. Igwe again? And we'll continue with our conversation. But don't forget to join us on all our social media platforms.
Here is a new and refreshing offer for our esteemed audience across the globe. The new AIT Cloud TV is an online streaming service that offers you attractive opportunities to view our rich, exciting, and entertaining programs anytime, anywhere. AIT Cloud TV is available on the web on www.ait.app, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Roku, and Android TV. You can also download the mobile app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. Simply connect to the internet, download the app, register, and watch live or catch up on unlimited hours of exciting shows. AIT Cloud TV. TV on the go.
A lot of Nigeria are expecting a lot from the new government in respect of the previous government that has left. A whole lot of Nigerians, they are disappointed in the previous one, but this particular one, we believe he is going to make Nigeria proud.
To me, we are expecting a lot from them, because Nigeria's already has
been. Sorry about that break. Of course, technology sometimes can be unfriendly to us. The network just froze. Dr. Igwe, are you back on right now?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Nancy.
So sorry about that disruption. Okay, let's quickly move ahead. During my intro, I did speak about at least the last 3 days have been so eventful. Few queues have come, and in Abuja, at least where I've been since yesterday, disappeared. I don't know for Lagos, and I don't know for PH where you are. Perhaps you should just give me an update of what's happening in Port Harcourt, really. Then we'll take it from there. Oh. Dr. Igwe is frozen again. What's happening? I hope it's not raining in Port Harcourt. Dr. Igwe, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, so give me an update of what... Yes, the internet
is pretty unstable, yes.
Exactly.
Go ahead.
So I just asked, can you give me an update of what's happening in Port Harcourt? Are the few queues still there?
Well, here and there are a few queues. They are disappearing slowly. But there's a lot of outrage with the sudden increase in prices. But like you alluded, the president in his inaugural speech promised the country that he will be compassionate and he will govern but not rule. He also said he will consult and dialogue but not dictate. After what many consider as a keenly contested, others say controversial elections, I think it's imperative for the president to keep to his word, especially in his inaugural speech, that he will consult and that he will govern and not rule. This fuel subsidy removal is an acid test to how things will proceed. And I did say to many people that after this kind of elections, I think it is important for the president to cultivate trust. He needs to rebuild trust. This really reminds me of those days that the National Youth Service Corps was introduced after the Civil War. I don't know whether you were born that time, Nancy, but one of the reasons was that the country became highly divided. And after these recent elections, very many people are disenchanted, very many people are disillusioned. But then President Tinubu has to be the president of all, those who voted for him and those who did not vote for him as he promised. So I think it is important he consults and he dialogues, especially regardless of how well intended this fuel subsidy removal, has been or can be. So building trust is very important, building confidence among the people and making sure that everybody is carried along.
Do you think that President Tinubu started on a good footing, bearing in mind what you just said, that he promised Nigerians that he will govern and not rule, that fuel subsidy is gone, that the funds should be channeled into health, education, public infrastructure, and also creating of jobs? Do you think that that is a good footing on which he started? And do you think that Nigerians are also understanding that part, that for him to govern and not rule, for him to be able to do some of those things, that hard decisions need to be taken and we need to cooperate with him? So do you think that Nigerians understand that? That's two questions in one.
Yes, I think that Nigerians, many Nigerians, especially from the background that, the campaigns and the elections, there were a lot of fragmentations. Many Nigerians may not understand him at this point. So there's a need for a lot of education and enlightenment. He needs to tell us why he needs to do this at this time, especially where the money will be channeled to. What is the plan for the money? 400 billion naira will be saved every month from the fuel subsidy removal. Where will he plot the money? That is very critical because we don't want to move away. I mean, you remember that the fuel subsidy regime was bedeviled with all kinds of accusations of corruption. So we don't want to leave frying pan to fire. It is important for the president to articulate what he wants to do with the fuel subsidy savings. I mean, savings from the fuel subsidy. 400 billion is a lot of money. Another thing that is important is that the president and his team would have preempted that such removal will, lead to, of course, deregulation, which means that the market will dictate the price. Although there are people who think that how can NNPC be fixing the price when we are talking about deregulation? Complete deregulation means let the market fix the price. So NNPC Limited has no business fixing the price. But that is another discussion. Now that we are seeing 530, what it means is that there will be hyperinflation and there will be implications on the poorest of the poor. And whenever anything affects prices, affects food, people who are already agitated, people who are already frustrated, get very frustrated and even become violent. So I think it's important that the president and his team to have preempted such scenarios and would have at least prepared for it. Everybody you go to now that are complaining, and regardless of the good intentions, on the savings and the promises of quantum infrastructure, education and everything, people need to know that there needs to be food on their table. And the hyperinflation, there must be remedial action for this implication, because ordinary people are going to be impacted negatively, at least in the short term. So he needs to prepare us that difficult times are going to be ahead. And he needs to tell us convincingly what will happen at the end of the tunnel. That will help us endure. That will help us, as you said, as very resilient people, become resilient, because we know that there's renewed hope on the way. But unless and until this is articulated, this whole knee-jerk reaction will affect every one of us and will deepen, the deficit in trust that had existed from the keenly contested, others say controversial, others say contentious elections that have been won and lost in the past few months.
Dr. Igwe, do you think with the events with what we've seen in the last 3 days, that this government was adequately prepared, at least since the election results announcement in March, since he was declared, when he was declared the winner, I think March 1, 2023 by INEC, from that time till May 29, he, of course, knew that he, even in his manifesto, said he would take off subsidy. Even at least the major presidential candidates did mention that. But from the event of the last 3 days, do you think that he prepared for the event of the last 3 days the way it has played out, really?
Well,
do you think that was the action they wanted to take? Perhaps to take Nigerians to surprise? NNPC also fixing a price in a supposedly deregulated market where there's a PIA?
Yes, well, I think that is very clear that so far it does not appear to us that adequate preparation and adequate planning took place, which is very surprising, because at the end of the day, we read a long time ago that even in the budget there was no first, people felt that maybe it could come as a supplementary budget, but at least on paper we did not see any provisions for SWIFT subsidy. So there were those conversations, in my view, that this will happen. But it should have been accompanied with some education, with some framing, so that people get prepared. Right now, there are people who cannot who cannot go to work because of transport fares. There are people who cannot afford what to eat. I think that the president and his team would have preempted and prepared some of these scenarios. And also, they would have started some engagement with the labor unions. The responses and the reaction of labor union is just natural. It's just simple that they are not going to agree. And we are in Nigeria. In the past, when some of these very, well-intended decisions have been taken, there have been back and forth. So I think the president, there's no indication so far. I don't know what will happen tomorrow, but there's no indication so far that adequate preparation was made. And many Nigerians have been taken by surprise. Look at you. What if you could not afford the money to buy fuel? Maybe you wouldn't be able to be on the show this morning. And I am certain there are many people who this decision and hike in price took by surprise, and is going to really alter the whole ecosystem and will have very, very dire implications. So, so far, I don't think that preparation had happened. That's the impression many Nigerians get and many analysts get. But who knows, in the next few days, maybe there will be something that the president and his team will still roll out. We are waiting.
Dr. Igwe, do you think that the political and the social side of this petrol subsidy removal has been what has been hampering the decision to be taken firmly from any government? Because if you take a look at it successively, from even the military regimes did also raise fuel price at a point to Obasanjo. I think Obasanjo raised it perhaps 3 or 4 times, if I'm not mistaken, all through until even the last president that said, that's President Buhari, that said he would take it off, but there was no political will, as it were. Do you think it's the political side, the political and the social angle that has been hampering this economic side, which everyone says is a necessity for us to survive as a country and for us to pool those resources and do other meaningful things? But the social political side has been taking us back. How do we balance it? How do we balance it? For a Tinubu now, that is president that is known as a political strategist, do you think that he will get the job done, this administration, communicate to Nigerians in an effective way, and we may not feel it as it were?
Well, Nancy, there is no good time to remove fuel subsidy to allow prices to climb from 190 to 500. Yes, there have been a whole lot of postponement. No political leader would like to see the population, complain, as it were, at any point. So many leaders in the past have contemplated this, and because of the political implications, I would say they have chickened out. So this is a courageous move by the president. But again, we must also realize, like you said, it is important to communicate it. Fuel subsidy corruption is something we all know. And it is important that the president and his team to justify why this is necessary at this time. The country, as you were trying to give us the news, you highlighted that there are revenue shortfalls. We cannot continue. The numbers we saw between 2016 and 2023, the former administration spent more than 17 trillion on fuel subsidy. That amount of money will do quite a lot. What I expected was that the president and his team will roll out a well-articulated plan of where these monies will be plowed into. And with that, you engage labor unions and you engage the people and ask the people to say, monitor me between my promises and my actions. Especially, this is an opportunity for the president to rebuild trust. And I cannot emphasize this enough, because I believe that building trust and building social capital, if you look at countries like Sweden, Denmark, Norway, the countries that come, the first 6 countries on the Corruption Perception Index every year are countries with very high public trust and social capital. So if the president succeeds to seize this moment to rebuild social capital, that means that he will indirectly be fighting corruption. There's been a whole lot of efforts and resources that countries like Nigeria expend in fighting corruption. Nobody has realized or recommended or suggested that building social capital, building public trust is one of the most effective but indirect ways of fighting corruption. So the whole policy of fuel subsidy removal is an important opportunity for the president to communicate effectively to an already frustrated, fragmented, and disenchanted public and citizenry, to regain their trust about his objectives, about his intention, and strengthen his legitimacy among those who supported him and those who did not support him, so that we can chart a common cause and follow him, match his words with actions, and see the results of how these monies will work for the people. Because fuel subsidy has been working for the elite, the corrupt few. Now, the fuel subsidy removal must and will and should work for the people. And it is the box stops on the president's table to articulate that and give us that plan and use that to galvanize the trust that has been eroded in the past few months during the campaigns.
Okay, you've raised a few points, and let me take it from there, from the last point which you said, that the fuel subsidy has really been for the elites. It's, corruption riddled. I guess that is what you're trying to say, that
Absolutely.
Some people have been fat from the proceeds of fuel subsidy. Now, the question of transparency and accountability, the question of accountability comes in there. Have we now been able to ascertain how that fuel subsidy is being done, and the racket and those that are siphoning the subsidy funds? What should happen to those people if they are found culpable? That is one. So that it's not as if, telling Nigerians that we need to take off subsidy, it needs to go. But the racketeering in there, we've not sorted it out. Just a few days ago, the House lawmakers did say that they cannot ascertain how many liters of fuel that we consume. But there is a subsidy. There's an agency or agencies even in the value chain that are supposed to give us that information. What data are they banking on? For example, the NNPC Limited GCEO said a few days ago that the federal government is owing NNPC 2.8 trillion naira. Why would it say that if the lawmakers cannot ascertain how many liters of fuel that we consume? Are we all right? do you understand what I'm saying here?
Yeah, Nancy, I get you. Like I said, this is an important opportunity for the president and his team. One of the things, some analysts will expect is that as soon as and it's not too late, as soon as he announced the removal of fuel subsidy, he will probably inaugurate a committee. Somebody will say how many committees to look into, to audit the fuel subsidy regime in the past 4 years or 8 years and make recommendations. And if there are people who, for instance, collected monies for these subsidies and did not supply the fuel, as probably may be the case, what will happen to them? And like I told you, Nancy, this is an opportunity for him. He has said the right things in his speech, but it is important for him to match his words with action. The probing or possible probing of beneficiaries of corrupt monies through the fuel subsidy regime is an opportunity for the president to make a point that there is a departure from the past and the time for business as usual is over. And it will send an important signal to the people, especially those, who are having second thoughts about how the election went and everything. It is important to bring them together, under a single umbrella with very patriotic and very firm decision making. So again, the buck stops on the table of the president, and who knows, in the next few days, we may hear that some of these things we are suggesting, the president and his team already have them in mind. Who knows? They could go in that direction. But it is important, like you said, that those who benefited from fuel subsidy in the past, yes, we know it has ended, but those who benefited from it in the past, who collected public resources, should not be allowed to go scot-free. So that, this government will demonstrate clearly that, that is a departure from the past. And that will help to contribute to the message of renewed hope and all the good things the president said in his speech.
Now, the president has been communicating a message of renewed hope, together in hope, and let's not be hopeless, that as far as the earth exists, that Nigeria would also exist. Messaging is very important. Communication is very important. How, as much as we know that communication is important, it's not also easy. It wouldn't also be easy for a very touchy and a sticky issue such as fuel subsidy removal or petrol subsidy removal. How do you think that this administration should communicate that in a way that Nigerians would understand? Because the elites so far may understand that, but the rural people may not understand the point that the president said fuel subsidy is gone, for example. How should that message be communicated to everyone to understand?
Well, Nancy, I think that I would say we've lost part of the opportunities that are available. But I think that right now, we have to think about communicating this message practically. As you know, federal government had obtained, we understand, $800 million for the palliatives. And these were all preparatory for a time like this when there will be hyperinflation. I think one way to communicate this, if you ask me, especially to touch the poorest of the poor, is to unveil the strategy to make sure that the palliatives will reach everyone. There will be inclusiveness in making sure that those who are hardest hit by the implications of this fuel subsidy, those poorest of the poor that we are talking about, are impacted by palliatives. And, the stories we hear about palliatives in the past, I'm sure you recall that, some of them, were distributed in a less inclusive and sometimes partisan manner, and that regime is over. And it is only after that practical communication that reaches, because the poor want to eat, that puts food on the table of the poor. It is after that we can now begin to communicate to them about infrastructure, about education, about the long-term benefit of some of these decisions and policies that the federal government has has made. So first, let's reach out to them with the palliatives, or at least let's unveil a practical plan for the palliatives to reach them. And secondly, let's now start the messaging of how, the monies saved from the removal of fuel subsidy can be used for quantum infrastructural development that will impact on every one of us in the future. And also, it is also important to emphasize that in all of this, security has been the most critical issue on the agenda. I think it is important that some of these messages are put together, because you cannot talk about even distribution of the palliatives with all the insecurity in the country. I think right now that Nigerians want to hear about a Marshall Plan on, I don't know whether that's the right word, on security, in the country. Insecurity in the southeast, in the northeast, everywhere. There are very few roads you can travel in Nigeria now without fear of insecurity. So I think that it is important that we take all the message together, because, the poorest of the poor are here. And even if you want to distribute palliatives, if there are no roads to travel, how will you do it? So I think it's critical that some of these messages are carried up, because the issues are urgent. You cannot take one and not take the other. The issue of insecurity is urgent. The issue of stability, for instance, in the Niger Delta, because, I didn't read anything about oil theft, the issues of stolen oil in the Niger Delta, the issue of criminality in that area is another issue. For instance, we're waiting for the president to announce that, look, probing needs to happen. Criminals need to be arrested, because as soon as the 400,000 barrels of oil, that's allegedly stolen every day, that is another fuel subsidy that we can harvest and put the resources together and articulate them for quantum infrastructural development and a frontline fight against insecurity, be it terrorism, be it unknown gunmen, all over the country, so that the kind of development we're thinking about, the kind of investment we're thinking about locally and internationally can start flowing. And that revamping of the economy that the president promised can become practicable.
For this message has been on for a long time that the petrol subsidy benefits the rich. But how true is this? Just opposing it with the fact, yes, just opposing it with the fact that, it's only the rich that benefits. It's the rich that utilize or use petrol. How true is it? Because we also know there's a transmission effect to a larger portion of the society. You mentioned earlier, of course, with this hike we've seen food prices. I wonder what inflation numbers will be in the coming months with these prices. So is it really true? Is it true that's statement that people are saying, that they've been saying for years, and we should go hook, line, and sinker? Because I'm a bit skeptical with that, because judging by what we see and what I know, the fact of it, there's an economic political side to this.
Well, I want to talk about two things. First is if you look at the list of those who have licenses to import, let's even do a bit of diagnosis of this first subsidy. What is it all about? It is about the fact that 2 million liters of fuel per day, and our production capacity locally is not that much. So we have to export crude oil and import fuel. And then, at the end of the day, monies are allegedly paid to some of these people who import these petroleum products to cushion the prices on the consumers. That's what this is all about. Now, who are the people who have licenses to do these importations? Are they ordinary people? And, so that is the first thing about how this fuel subsidy is for the rich, because they are the people who collect these monies, and they are the people who import or not import this fuel. So at the end of the day, if you are talking about corruption and decay, in that arena, you are not going to find ordinary people there. You are going to find the elite. And that's the first thing. The second thing I want to talk about is the Gini coefficient and the inequality, that's in this country. And Gini coefficient is, of course, the gap between the rich and the poor. Nigeria is not very bad. It's not as bad as South Africa, at least, but it's expanding. The last time I checked the numbers is about 38.1, and that is the gap between the rich and the poor. And it continues. Who are the people who drive cars? They are not the ordinary people. Nancy, there are people like you. The people we're talking about are the people who cannot travel except they enter Okada. Those are the people we're talking about, and who, when this happens, an average Okada rider will raise the fare. And if that does not, correspond with, those who work, barely, imagine someone who earns like 300 to 500 naira in a day. Those are the people we're talking about. Those are the people we say. And when you talk about Nigeria as the capital of poverty, we're not talking about those importers. We're not talking about those who are able to buy fuel, whether it's 129 or 500. We're talking about those who depend on what they earn every day. And when there is an inflation, they just cannot afford to buy food. Those are the people we're talking about. And if President Tinubu, for any reason, decides to look into the arena of how this fuel subsidy has been paid in the last 4 to 8 years and not been paid, the people whose names will come up, if you ask me, are the people we're talking about. And when we're talking about benefit, it is not that these subsidies are not targeted at the poor. They are targeted at the poor to cushion the amount of money they pay in transport, which is an implication of how much money people spend buying fuel at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, what we have seen is these monies are allegedly diverted to private pockets. And what this means is that instead of diverting it away from the people who they originally intended to benefit, let it be that the market is dictating, and let there be alternative ways. And these alternative ways are crucial. That's the emphasis I want to put here. These alternative ways are developed to make sure that even though it is now dictated by the market, but those people who originally the fuel subsidy was targeted to impact upon are indirectly impacted upon, so that they're not consumed by poverty, and they can be empowered enough to still remain alive and carry out whatever they are doing, despite the inflation that is currently the case across the country.
I wonder what will happen in the next few weeks, or when we get the coming months, the inflation data, what that will be. But from Mr. President's inaugural speech, did you get an idea of what his 4 years presidency might look like? The necessary reforms that he will bring about?
Well, I think that he sort of, even though he was very general in his speech, he sort of spoke to a couple of issues: monetary policy, foreign policy, security, economy, job creation, agriculture. But the specifics we are still waiting for. I think that, for instance, if you look at the fact that energy transition is here, our key source of revenue is oil. And, with the climate change related issues and with the issues that oil companies are now divesting, it is imperative for any country that is dependent on the extractive industry, especially oil and gas like Nigeria, to begin to think creatively. I am confident that the president has been, you refer to him as a strategist. He has been long enough in the arena to understand these issues, and I'm sure that the people around him might have articulated, clear plans, understanding that willy-nilly our revenue will continue to dwindle because companies are divesting, either as a result of divesting from onshore to offshore, where the fiscal terms are different, or they're divesting because of climate change related issues, divesting away from fossil fuel to the renewables. And indeed, NNPC Limited itself, and again, if you look at the Petroleum Industry Act, there's very little on renewables, but I'm happy that Nigeria has an energy transition plan. So all these things would need to come together, and I'm certain that what we saw in the speech may probably be, general, summaries. And I'm sure that in the coming days or weeks, some of these things may be coming out from the president's people in detail. But the issue is here that it is urgent. Things are urgent. Poverty and the implications of this inflation is not going to wait. People are disenchanted. People are unhappy. Some are disillusioned, especially, especially those who see that the election didn't go exactly the way they felt. And it is an opportunity for the president to use every singular decision he's making, every singular policy, to make sure that both those who voted for him and those who did not vote for him are carried along.
Okay, Dr. Igwe, in just 1 minute, because we've got to go, how should a President Tinubu balance economic policy and political alignment challenges, bearing in mind that we're still expecting his team, the minister's announcement, and other critical positions? How should he balance political alignment as well as what we need, square pegs in square holes, round pegs in round holes? What kind of cabinet do you expect to see? The balancing of it.
Well, I think that we Nigerians want a cabinet of solution providers. Nigerians want a cabinet of competence, and I'm certain that the president will go in that direction. Also, Nigerians want the president to be inclusive, so he needs to balance competence and inclusiveness. As you know, it is difficult it's been quite difficult for very many people, especially from Christians, the Christian fold. The whole issue of Muslim ticket, is still fresh in the heart of many people. So I think that the president himself, as a strategist, as you referred to him earlier, will be able to make sure that there is an inclusiveness, there is competence, and there are people, he selects people who work for him, who understand both the political and social implications of where we are coming from as a country and as a people, and who will provide solutions and support him to broaden his support base and to make sure that every decision he makes enjoys the trust of the people, and his social capital continues to expand and not dwindle in the coming days or weeks. And that way, he will succeed as a president.
All right.
That's actually what I think.
Thank you, Dr. Igwe, for joining us today. Thank you very much. And have a lovely month. It's the 1st of June, so have a lovely month ahead.
Thank you very much. I like the way you are looking. I wish you more money in your pocket to be able to buy fuel, because the days ahead promise to be topic.
They are very bumpy. The days ahead will be very rough. But like they say, in Nigeria, they will say it's not my portion. God will continue to provide. And also provide for you too.
I know.
Because we are in this together.
Yes, the pilot says nothing to worry about. There will be turbulence, but nothing to worry about.
Yeah. And
take care. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have successfully landed this plane, Moneyline with Nancy plane. So we will please join us again tomorrow, same time here on the station. Be the best you can be. But a change you want to see. Just before I forget, I've been speaking with Dr. Uche Igwe, who is a visiting fellow at London School of Economics and Political Science. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye now.